every time he'd woken up in the morning, I was breathing heavily or snoring. I mean, I've always been a snorer, and there was no snoring, there was no sound, and he thought I'd died. So we went downstairs and made a cup of tea, and then
Liz, how did you find Carnivore?
well, first of all, I do want to thank you for inviting me to come and talk to you. Like most people, I've watched your show and I've listened to all these different people sharing their stories. Uh, and I just feel that, like, as many people need to talk about it as possible. So I'm just glad of this opportunity, really. And then I can show my friends and family and finally say in one place why I'm doing carnivore. So I suppose my journey, it's been a long journey, like with everybody else. So if I go back to 2000, and I think it was about 13 or 14, certainly about 10 years ago, maybe a bit longer, um, I was really overweight. I was 16 stone and 5'4". I don't know what that is in pounds, but anyway. Um, and I, at that time, I'd spent much of my adult life, I was 42, and I was kind of like, I'd spent my life yo-yo dieting. So from early teens up to my 40s, I had been up and down my weight as most women are. And it was predominantly, it was always to do with looks. It was never to do with health. I wasn't particularly unhealthy in terms of, well, outwardly. I didn't have anything that I went to a doctor for, put it that way. I felt okay physically, but I didn't wanted to be slim. I wanted to fit in. I didn't want to be the fat sister. I didn't want to be the fat friend. Um, I just wanted to fit in and be slim. And that led me to all sorts of diets. Right. So I'd done pretty much any diet that was out there. In my teens, 20s, I was probably varying between, even I did have an eating disorder at one point, but I was doing the cereal diet, so I did the Special K diet that was out there. That you're supposed to eat 2 bowls of Special K and a light meal at night. I did Slim Fast. I did Slimming World. I did them all. I did them all. And my weight would come off and then go back on, and then I'd do it again, and I could manage to do that. So if I did put weight on, I'd get angry with myself and I think, you've done it again, lose some more weight, so back on it. But when I hit my 40s and there's a big wedding coming up and I'd put on like all this weight, I was 16 stone and probably at my biggest, I kind of thought, right, time to do it again, time to get it off. I got this wedding in 6 months' time, and it was going to be at the Ritz in London. It was only a little wedding, and I was going to be the fat relative if I didn't lose this weight. So again, it was all about what you look like, and I didn't want to be the fat one. Uh, anyway, so started the usual thing. Oh well, if I just cut everything out and exercise, I'll lose weight. But I think by that time, my body just went, nah, nah, not doing it anymore. You've done this all your life. I'm not doing it anymore. So um,
I've had enough.
yeah, it's like I'm sick of this game. Yeah, you lose. Uh, and also, so obviously, I look back now and I think I was entering perimenopause as well. So my hormones and everything were going, nah, we've got too much other work to do here. We're depleted, we're done. Um, and so that made me annoyed. And I thought, right, I've got to really take it out on myself now. It's all your fault, Liz. You've got to lose this weight. And so I hired a personal trainer, bit extreme, but I wanted to get this weight off. And he was the first person, because I'd convinced myself I was a food addict. I thought, I'm just addicted to food. If I was a heroin addict, I'd just quit heroin altogether. If I was a Coke addict, I'd just quit Coke. I wouldn't touch it again. Or an alcoholic, that's what I would do. Uh, but you can't quit food completely. But that's what you tend to do with this yo-yo diet. You tend to cut as much of it out as you can. And he was the one who convinced me that I wasn't a food addict, that I was probably carb addicted and sugar addicted. So that was the first I'd ever thought about that. And so he got me onto like paleo, really, cutting that. He said there was good carbs and there was good sugars in like fruit and veg and things like that. But to eat a lean protein diet, make that my main with a bit of veg and stuff, and try and limit my fruit because it's still sugar, even though, and to eliminate processed foods. So I thought, well, I'll give that a go. I can't imagine it's going to work, but I'll give it a go. And that really did help. And I was on that for 6 months. It gave me a book by Rob Wolf called The Paleo Solution, which made a lot of sense. And that introduced me to the idea of how sort of like the agricultural revolution sort of messed us up as a species. And when we went more into grains and things like that, that's when our bodies start to get sick. And there was a lot of evidence for that. And that was when I started to think about, well, maybe big food and big pharma have a vested interest in, their profits come from getting us addicted so that we eat more of their stuff, and curing that stuff, those diseases, not making us die, not letting us die, but letting us be ill enough that we go back and buy products. So I got a bit of a conspiracy theory head on at that time. Worked out 3 times a week, really hard with this personal trainer because it was still all about, it wasn't about health, it was all about getting into that nice wedding outfit. And then I I realised I hate exercise. I hate that kind of it. I don't mind a walk or anything, but I hate getting sweaty. And I was doing it for looks, and I was covered in bruises, and I was covered. Then the next day after I'd done the exercises, I couldn't walk. I was like a little old lady strutting about. So that's when, as soon as the wedding was over, I was quitting all that. I thought I'd stick with the diet. I thought I'd stick with it, and as usual, I didn't. So the next few years, my weight just crept on again. But then I started to get into this mindset of, do you know what? I'm in my 40s. I'm never going to look amazing. So the whole idea of living my life obsessively to fit in and look well, I started to reevaluate that and started to concentrate on me. What was really important, family, friends, having a good career, my church life, my faith, all that sort of thing became more important to me. And while I did let myself go physically, um, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, I was getting stronger. I was really thinking, it's time to stop all that kind of chasing something that you're never going to have. You're never going to have that. You're never going to be slim. You're never going to be healthy that way, but you can be healthy in your mind. And so that was a good thing. That was a really good thing. But as I said, I was getting sicker and not really realising it. I was having migraines. My hips and my knees and were always hurting, my back. My moods were up and down. And I just felt wrong in my head a lot of the times. And then 2019, but I put all that down to age, just natural aging, and probably I start to realise I'm in the perimenopause. I'm probably just going that way because of that. And then 2019 came along, and that was I was in a good place half of the year, but then my mum got ill and she passed away. Now, I forgot to tell you, in 2000, I'm thinking it's 2013, 14 when I did the whole paleo thing and I got that book. I gave my mum, she was in her 70s, I gave my mum that book to read. And she was overweight too. And she went the whole hog. And she lost loads of weight, and she stuck with it. She stuck with it for the rest of her life, and she cut out all processed food. She just eat healthy meat, predominantly meat, cut out potatoes, bread, all the rest of it. She even went down herbal routes, and she was able to come up with statins. She was able to come up all her meds. She did amazingly. So I'm really proud of my mum. She did better than me because she weren't doing it for looks. She was doing it for her health. She wanted the last years of her life to be great, and they were. She was the envy of all her friends, and she inspired a lot of people too. But then she passed away in 2019 after a really short illness, and I went in 2019. So everything just seemed to implode for me. So I was going through grief. I'd got a new job, and there was a lot of stress in that job, and I was working more hours probably to deal with the grief. My blood pressure went through the roof. I was put on some blood pressure tablets that just made me ill and made my ankles swell, and he wouldn't change them, so I just stopped having them, which was really dangerous. But I did that because I'd lost faith in pharmaceuticals and doctors and stuff, which is probably silly, but I had. I was, and then COVID came along very shortly after that, and I did get COVID, and I got the long version where had the brain fog and the fatigue and the insomnia and just all that for a long time. Um, and that went on for a couple of years where I was just getting sicker and sicker and fatter, to be fair. I was up at like 19 stone. And then it was like I sort of like cried out to God and kind of said, "Oh, I need help. What do I do?" And basically, I felt I just had to stop. I had to stop everything I was doing. And so I spoke to my husband, and I did stop work. I needed to get the stress out of me so that I could think. And for the first month after I stopped work, I just slept. I slept so much. So it's obviously my body needed that. But then I started to think again about my whole health, because I've always believed that everything has a knock-on effect on everything. If you're physically unwell, it affects you mentally. If you're mentally unwell, it can affect you physically. If you're spiritually unwell, it affects everything. So you need to be in a balance, really. So I started to think about my mental health, and I started to look into that, and that's when I started watching quite a lot of different podcasts on things that can affect your mental health. And I watched The Diary of a CEO. Not even heard of Steve Bartlett. He's great. And he had on the Glucose Goddess, Jessie. I can't say her surname, but she's got a book out. And I just thought, oh, listen to her, and began to talk about how glucose works in the body and how devastating it can be for your mental health, for your physical health, for everything. And I was just like, wow, that's interesting. That takes me back to paleo when I learned that about, all those days ago, all those years ago. So I listened to that. And then it's funny how things start to just pop up on your YouTube. I was also interested in Jordan Peterson. Not some of his views I'm not in line with, but I liked how he thought, and I liked how he managed his behaviour when other people were behaving badly towards him, how he managed to articulate. And I thought, oh, I want some of that too. So I was wanting to learn how he did it, watch it, copy a little bit some of his techniques. And then obviously he talked about Michaela and his daughter, and the fact that he's only on beef, and I'm like, that's extreme. She probably needs that because she's, she's allergic to everything. Um, and then it just has that knock-on effect, doesn't it? So you listen to that, and you listen to some more. I listened to a bit more on paleo, and then I listened to some more on carnivore. Dr. Ken Berry. I watched the one where he talks to Kelly Hogan, and I just loved her. And I thought she's telling my story. She's like amazing. And I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, wow, um, but it wasn't all to do with weight. And that was because the one thing I was scared of was going back to this, oh, it comes about your weight. And I'd moved away from that, about it being your looks and all that. Like, I wanted it to be about my mental health, about how that. And people were talking about that too. I listened to it, and I think I've forgotten his name. Just Dr. David Unwin. I'm just looking at the names I've written down, and he's English. It was amazing. All this science about how diabetes and how sugars affect the brain and all the rest of it. And I was just like, wow, uh, this stuff this is making more and more sense. Dr. Ken Berry, obviously, Dr. Anthony Shavey, all of them. And so I was looking into fasting as well, because that's part of who I, as a Christian, part of our thing is to pray and fast occasionally, And I thought I've never been able to do that without it descending into full blown anorexia for me. So I was always a bit like wary of it. But I started to learn about intermittent fasting, and I thought that's a good idea. So I tried that a little while, with a bit of paleo thrown in, mixing all my knowledge. But I was still, it still wasn't, I wasn't quite there. And then last year, 2023, I went on holiday to Cyprus. My stepdaughter was getting married, and I was probably at my biggest that I've ever been. I was like 19 and a half stone, so you figure that out. And I mean, because of my mental state, because I'd got into this state of it's not about looks, I really enjoyed the holiday. But there were bits of it I couldn't enjoy. I couldn't go for the walks that I wanted to go because of my hips and my knees. And I did feel I was with grandma a lot, and I was sat with grandma on that holiday, making the excuse that I was sitting with her and she was probably healthier than me and she's in early 80s. So, um, and that was disappointing. So when I came back, I thought, this is it. This is it now. Uh, time to start have a go at this carnivore thing. And so I started that last year, probably about July, August last year. And I can't tell you, it's changed my life. Well, I can tell you, that's what I've come to do on time. But yeah, so the first thing that happened, so I'd been on it like about 3 days, maybe 4 days. And I wake up, this is so funny. I woke up one morning to a start with this impression someone's leaning over me. My husband's like leaning over me. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? He said, I thought you were dead. Every time he'd woken up in the morning, I was breathing heavily or snoring. I mean, I've always been a snorer, and there was no snoring, there was no sound, and he thought I'd died. So we went downstairs and made a cup of tea, and then he come back up, and he's leaning over me, not wanting to poke me to wake me up. But he had woke me up with his breath, so that was so funny. So my snoring's never come back, so he's really happy about that. It never really disturbed him, but if I'd go away with one of my cousins, she always had to take earplugs, because I always snored. So yeah. So that was the first thing. So my snoring went, which like I'd heard of that before, listening to other thing, and so that was the first thing. It's working, because like other people had said that had happened. What was amazing though was less than, I would say, within a fortnight. I would say it was less than that, but I don't want to exaggerate, but it was certainly within a fortnight. Uh, I had such bad inflammation in my hips and knees. I didn't know it then. I just thought it was because I was so fat. That obviously the weight on my hips and on my knees was what was making it so difficult for me to walk and get up and down stairs. And that went, and I hadn't lost a pound. I don't think I'd lost a pound. I wasn't really weighted, but that just went, and I couldn't believe it. I've got a little grandson,
And that's in
and
how many days?
that was in less than 14 days. And I want to say it was probably about a week later, but I don't want to exaggerate. So let's say within a fortnight. And I hadn't really lost any weight at all at that point. Um, and that was amazing because I've got this little grandson, and he's so active, and I've always used to say when I was young, I'm a young mum. So I had my first child at 17, but that's okay because I'll be a young grandma and I'd have all this energy. Well, that didn't work out because I was overweight and I was ill. And but I couldn't get down on the floor. And if I got down on the floor, ooh, getting back up, and I was in agony as well if I was sat on the floor with him. And I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks into Carnivore, I went to babysit, and my husband came, and I'm on the floor with him, and he asked for something, and I just got up, sprang up, and Chris goes, "What was that?" That was my husband. "What was that?" I said, "What you on about?" He said, "You've just sprung up. I haven't seen you spring up anyway for a long time. Seen me bounce up, probably wobble up, but not spring up." So that was amazing. And again, before I'd lost weight, so like there was obviously something happening in my body that had nothing to do with weight. That the weight was an issue, obviously, but I think that was what was inhibiting me from being able to do the stuff that I wanted to do because I'm inflamed. So going up and downstairs, I used to literally have to drag myself upstairs, and that was changing. So
I,
I'd
I'm I'm just thinking about what I'm just thinking about what your husband's state of mind must have been. It's like thinking first you're pretending to be dead, and then you're jumping around the house like a jack in the box.
yeah. I don't. I mean, he's really fit, so do you know what I mean? His weight's pretty much always been okay, and he's always, he does all his weights and stuff like that. But I know you did worry about my health. He's never been a guy who's bothered about my weight. He loves me regardless, but he did worry about, and he kept that a lot to himself. But he was starting to worry, particularly with these migraines and stuff that I was getting, and my inability to do things and do anything. He was worried, and it's now he talks about that more because he said it was starting to really worry him. That he was going to lose me, which was fair enough. And then, so I also, which I'd never told anybody about, I've got this tightness in my chest and this wheezing in my chest that all the time, and a little bit of a pain under one of my ribs. So I always thought I was going to die. For a long time, I've been thinking I'm going to just have an heart attack one day. I'm just going to die. I had all these negative thoughts, and I just used to pray, God, don't let me die, don't let me die. But I didn't want to go to doctors because I knew what they were going to say, lose weight, and I'm like, I've done that, and I can't do that. So um, that went, that wheezing just went. I just suddenly realised it one day. I used to lie in bed and I used to feel this wheezing, and I wouldn't say anything to anybody. I'd just hear it, feel it, and that just went, and that pain just went. So things were just going. And then the weight just started to come off like ridiculously fast. So I'd just started a new little job, just a few hours a week working in a library, and they give you this belt as part of your uniform. with some keys. And this belt, when I put it on to start the job, I had to have it on the very first hole and I was like praying that they wouldn't have to put another, because that would have been really embarrassing. But I did manage to have it on the first one. Within a really short space of time, I was pulling it halfway round and onto a middle hole, do you know what I mean? And getting it in. So that went really fast. And now Chris has had to put extra holes in so that I can get it round my waist and it fits on. So since 2023. So I went all the way. We went back to Cyprus because that's where we'd been last year. Back to the same hotel because we wanted to go back without the family and just explore. We loved the area, so we went back to that hotel virtually a year later. And in that time, I had lost. I'd lost about 7 stones in weight, which is which is like amazing. So I got down my weight, and I have to say that I was 100% carnivore about 90% of the time. There was about 10% of the time. So say I would go out on a weekend with my friends, or I'd go out for a meal. Occasionally I'd have a glass of wine because I didn't want to be the boring one who didn't drink. And if I went to someone's house, I would eat what was put in front of me, because that's old habits die hard, and you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be the guest that's awkward. And so, particularly after Christmas, so this year from January to June when we went on holiday, I was less strict, but most of the time I was strict. And the thing is it's easy. It's easy because you're not hungry. You're just not hungry. The only reason I was eating or anything while I was out that was different was just because I didn't want to be rude more than I was hungry. No cravings. I've never had a life without cravings for stuff. You know, I could sit there with Chris. Chris would eat it just didn't bother me. I could eat with anybody and it not bother me. Unless I had a bit, and then that would set me off again. And then I'd just think, right, just fast it out your system, fast for a day, get back into it. And I've never been able to do that either. I've never been able to just jump straight back into it if I've had a fail, but that's happened this time. So that was me right up to June this year when I went on holiday. And we went to Cyprus, which was great because I'm now able to wear decent stuff. And do more. I'd got all these things planned that I wanted to do because I felt fitter. And this is all without exercise, by the way. Other than just, I've got loads more energy. So my grandson's kind of running me down to the shop, racing me to the shops is, about as much as I'm happy to do in my house. I don't have to bruise myself or anything to get into shape. Get to Cyprus and it's all inclusive. And I thought, no, I'm going to stick with Carnivore, but I didn't. So immediately I thought, no, I'm on holiday. It's a treat. I'm going to do this. So I just lived my life. So get this. So 4 days in, and I wasn't overeating. I wasn't particularly overeating. I sometimes didn't even have my breakfast, but I was eating whatever was on offer. And I was drinking. I was having cocktails. I was having wine. 5 days in, I was realising I was getting pains in my hips and knees. And by the end of the holiday, I could not go downstairs or upstairs without holding on to Chris like a little old lady. All that information. So that at the time I just thought, oh, it's because you've been laying about, you've been laying in the sun, you're being lazy, you need to do a little bit more. It wasn't that. My mood everything started to just get gripey, just a bit irritable, a bit panic, anxiety, because I'd suffered with that all through my 40s, all through anxiety and panic attacks. I started to experience not the full blown panic attacks, but that kind of upbuilding of anxiety where I had to do a lot of like, calming myself down. And I hadn't experienced. I've just been so calm. All the, just I couldn't believe the calm that you get through Carnivore. Um, so I came back from holiday, and I just thought I've got to get back. I've got to just do the right thing now. This is ridiculous. And so I gave it a week, sort of like just weaning off. And then on the Monday, I thought, that's it, I'm back on now. So, and I took a deep breath, and those 3 days were a nightmare. I had the full keto flu, which I've not suffered really the first time. I had the full keto kind of, I was brain fog, fatigue, um, sore throat, everything just was, and that shakes. And I've worked in with people with addictions, withdrawing off of heroin and other substances. I've watched people rattle. This was a rattle, which taught me a big lesson. Like, you are an addict, and you cannot have a bit of this ever again. You can't have this again. You can't have this poison in your system ever again. So it's given me a fresh determination. And so since coming off, since so that lasted 3 days. Woke up on the fourth day, well, like everything had left me. I was back to normal. I was on it, and I've been 100%, and I'm more determined now. I'm like, no, my health is more important than other people's feelings, and I'm going to. If I go out for a meal, they're just going to know I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to. So nothing has. No carb, no sugar sent to my body since I come back off holiday in June. And yeah, so I've been monitoring my blood pressure, and it had come down from where it was. It was still pretty high, but not high, just sort of like a bit above where it should be. But it's slowly been coming down, and I've just been watching it. And I don't do it every day, but monitoring it, and then finally, and I think it's because I've been totally carnivore, that 100% of the time, as well as 100%. And the only thing that is different, yeah, I have coffee that's different to what a lot of people have. I still, and I'm even thinking about my coffee today. I'm thinking I need to get rid of my coffee on my diet, but that'll come. Uh, but my blood pressure went down, and it's like a absolute normal now. And I just like with Dad said, I'm like, yeah, my blood pressure's to normal. I want to go back
That's
to normal.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, and the best thing is, honestly, I think for me, I feel like a lot of people have a bit of shame around kind of, if they cheat or they go off plan or whatever, like on a holiday or when they go out or something. But I kind of feel in some ways it it's one of those things that it's bad, but it's good as well because it gives you that resolve to go,
Yeah,
I'm not going back here.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So to get to this point, how have you been eating day to day?
So pretty much, at first I started with the fasting thing. So I would do a 16-hour fast and then not eat till lunchtime. And pretty much that's kept up, but it's not through a fasting mentality anymore. It's just simply, so I tend to eat anytime after midday. So sometimes it depends when I'm working. Sometimes I'm not hungry till about 2 o'clock. Um, and I tend to have a couple of steaks or one steak and some eggs. Either one steak. It's reduced a little bit because I think just my appetite. I just can't eat as much, and maybe that's to do with my my size or whatever I've come down. So, but I eat till I'm full. I do like Dr. Kenberry, eat till you're stuffed, and I eat till I'm stuffed, and immediately then whatever's left on my plate. That's broken another thing because I never could leave anything on my plate. It's almost like a sin. You're not allowed to do that. That's my mother from old. Bless her. um, you don't you eat everything on your plate. But now, as soon as I'm done, I'm done. I know it's not going to come back. I'm just going to chuck it. Well, the dogs love it because the dogs get it then. So it tends to be a steak or a couple of steaks, depending how hungry I feel, and probably 2 or 3 eggs scrambled in butter. And that can be me all day. So that might be all I have. But often when I get in, if I've been at work in the evening, I'll come in and Chris might have done me another steak, so I'll have that. Or I might just think, oh, I'm just going to have a few scrambled eggs. I try not to eat after 7 at night because it just trying to get my sleep right. That's one thing I've seen people say, oh, it cures your insomnia, and I'm waiting for that because I still suffer quite a bit with. I'm sleeping better, and now I'm reducing my coffee, and I am sleeping, but I'm having bigger chunks of sleep. I just don't. Sometimes it takes me a while to fall off, but then I've got a hyperactive brain. You've probably worked that out. My brain's like, so I have a lot of things that I like to think about. So yeah, that's my diet, and I just eat. I drink some, like I say, I'm reducing my coffee. I tend to drink boiled water or sparkling water. That's my treat. Sparkling water is like my substitute prosecco. And actually, I hated sparkling water before. I hated water as a rule, and and I don't like tap water or anything. But I really hated sparkling water. But since I've become carnivore, it's not sweet. It doesn't have anything sweet in it, but it just makes me feel like it's sweet because there's a little bit of something there. So that's my drink that I have when I'm out when I'm out, with my friends and they're all drinking wine. I'll have a sparkling water and I feel fine. So that's pretty much it. I have a little bit of cheese if sometimes I just feel a little bit snacky, I suppose. It's not very often I feel snacky, but I think I'm not really hungry enough to eat. Maybe I just need so put a little bit of cheese in, and it is a little bit as well. And I'm like, oh, that's done that. I'm fine now. And yeah, so that's me.
Wow. And during any of this time, has Chris been tempted to give it a try?
Yeah, so he keeps giving it a try. Um, what can I say about Chris? So he's like the biggest advert. So I go to places and I just sort of like just get on with it. He's got to tell everybody. He's told everybody about this amazing diet that I'm on and the way that it's transformed my life. He's so like happy about it. And he's got a few little issues. So he's approaching 60 this year, and he's got a few issues, which he's try. He says, "Oh, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a go," but he just can't give up his sugar in his tea, and he doesn't seem to need it as much as I do. But I just said because he's got that plantar, whatever it's called, fasciitis or whatever it is in his heel.
Plantar fasciitis, yeah.
That's the one. He's got that. And I said to it, I just wish that you would go a month pure carnivore, elimination, and then introduce things back to see what sets that off. If it goes, if it goes, if it doesn't, then do. Um, and he'll set off on yeah, that's me. And then I'll say, is having something else. And I'll go, well, that's not pure carnivore. I'm a bit judgmental with him. But he's done really well. So he has cut out things like bread and potatoes and pasta, and he's probably more paleo, maybe, but not eating. We don't eat fruit. We don't have fruit in. But he will have his veggies. And if there's a meal comes up, and if there's puddings, and his daughter did a birthday party for someone the other week. We went round, and I'm not resisting a banoffee pie. He said. So it didn't, but so we ate everything that day. So it's not 100%, but it's certainly not better. He knows it needs to do it. And he said this morning, I am doing it. I am doing it 100% for the next 30 days. So we'll see. I hope he does. But he's the one who really believes in it. He's seen it in me. There's no, um, he can't deny it. You know, he's seen it in me. But yeah, I don't think he's ready to commit.
Yeah. So when you're out with your friends or someone out, like, do they ever say, "How come you don't eat the anything but steak anymore?" Or because you said
Yeah,
you're being more strict and you're having the sparkling water when you're out with them as well. So has anyone commented?
yeah, I think they feel sorry for me. So I, my sister, my sister's obviously been on my journey throughout my life of yo-yo dieting, and I've been on this one and I've been on that one and singing the praises of this one. So I think she kind of just thinks it's all about weight loss, and the reason I'm feeling so good is because I've lost all this weight. It doesn't matter that I say, actually, I felt better before I lost the weight. Do you know what I mean? And so she's a bit like, oh well, if it works for you, oh, do you not just want a glass of wine? Because we were drinking buddies. Do you know what I mean? And I can remember the first time before I've come back really strict. Um, I went out with her and a friend, and I said, "Oh, just get me a sparkling water and coffee." And they come back with wine because they said, "Oh, you can't sit there and not have a drink." That's how people think, isn't it, when you're out? So I did have that then, but now it'd be like, "Nah, not having that. It's poison to me." So I'm not having it. I don't judge other people, but I just know what it does to me, and I know that I'm allergic, if you want to say, to that stuff. My body just rebels.
Well, that's it, isn't it? If you had a peanut allergy and someone said, "Just have one, it's all right," you'd be like, "No, I don't want to go to hospital."
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think
yeah.
once people start to realise that how badly I felt. Um, I've just got one thing. So, well, I've been absolutely 100% carnivore since I've come back. Um, there's a caveat to that because I got invited to someone's house for a little meeting about something we were planning. Didn't know this person very well, and that they just wanted to welcome me into their home and into their family. And she'd made me a meal as I walked in. I thought I was going for coffee and tea, so there was a meal prepared. She said, "I just want to welcome you. I just want to," which was beautiful. And there was no way, it wasn't the kind of relationship where I could say, "Well, I'm not eating that stuff, so no." And I felt so bad. I think I'd have been kicked out and I'd never been invited back. So I ate that day. And I have to say that was last Sunday. And yeah, last Saturday or Sunday, I went there Saturday. And I have to say that it's taken a few days because I ate things I only ate a little bit, but it were enough. And that night I had the worst cramp down my leg that I've ever had in my life. And I've just had a headache since. So I've had little, like, before I went full carnivore, I was having some of these headaches, but this, I haven't had them since. And that was back. Um, and it's taken probably till yesterday, I started to feel better. Um, and that just shows me I can't eat that stuff. I can't do it. No matter how kind people are being towards me, it's like you say, you wouldn't eat peanuts if you'd got a nut allergy. You wouldn't, if you're gluten intolerant, you wouldn't eat which I probably am. I don't know, but I can't eat that stuff. So I'm just, yeah, I've just got to be honest about that. So,
But it's awesome that you're at the point where your resolve is so strong, and you just know, like, I'm not even interested in that food anymore. I'm just happy eating this way,
yeah,
and I'm happy to stick to it. Like most people never ever get to that point.
no. I don't think I've ever been
Mm.
at the point on any other way of being where I've just been happy to ignore everything else. And I literally did not crave it. I've never been with that. I was like, okay, take me back to my childhood and the stories of me. I'm the little one, I'm the baby of the family, and I was the greedy pig. So my we were only allowed sweets on a Sunday. So my nan would buy us sweets, so we had to have them on a Sunday after Sunday dinner. And I would be the one hiding in the corner, stuffing down my sweets. And then I'd trot over to my other sister and stand there with my hand out because she wasn't so bothered about sweets, and I'd eat her sweets too. I'd never share my sweets, and I've lived my life like that. So, like, as a child, I was fairly, just normal diet that parents put you on. As a teenager, I cut out most savouries and it was sweets I lived on most of the time. Sweets and cigarettes. From a really young age, I would go to the shop at lunchtime with my dinner money. I'd buy the cigarettes and I'd buy a packet of sweets for my dinner. So I was getting addicted and I didn't know it to sugar, and I was getting addicted to nicotine. Got rid of the nicotine a long time ago, but the sugars remained. So.
If one of your friends suddenly decided, look, I've had enough of my weight, or I want to get rid of this joint pain that I've got, they came to you and they said, I want to try this, what advice would you give them to get started?
So I think the first thing would be like just tell them to get rid of all processed foods out the cupboards. Just go pure to start with. Pure, your whole foods, because that's not as shocking, and it's not as shocking to your system. Um, but I would say always bear in mind that you're eventually going to get rid of the vegetables and the fruit as well. But start off with that. That's a big enough commitment, and that's really where I went to start with. And I think most people can handle that idea, because that is the stuff that's gonna kill you fast. Get rid of all that stuff, and then I would say, just start to get rid of the fruit first, because I think that's more addictive. Veggies you'll go off naturally because I don't really think we really like them anyway. We have to stick so much gravy and sauce and stuff. So fruit tastes,
Yeah, it's just a vehicle. It's just a vehicle for sauce, right?
yeah. I mean, even these salads, you have to put loads of French dressing on them or something on them to make them palatable. And like, oh no, don't lie and say you like salads. I used to like, oh, I'm eating my salads. I feel so great. Now I hated them. Um, but unless it had a big fat jacket tater on it with loads of butter dripping all over it or something. Um, and people will say like, "Oh, I couldn't just." And I think you you could you couldn't just eat meat, but you could just eat salad. Like some people say, "Oh, oh, I can't," and I just think you can do this if your health is so bad. And what I would probably say is, when you decide to go carnivore, do it as I did. It was an experiment. I'd heard and I still do, and listen to all the science. So go and get yourself informed. Knowledge is power. The truth will set you free. So it's not knowing the truth in terms of your head knowledge, it's knowing the truth in your lived experience. And that's my faith, that's what I believe about my Christian faith, that's what I believe about life in general. Know the truth. So go and get all the knowledge, Know what people are saying, know what lies you've been told, know what you're deceiving yourself with. Get that in your head. Watch as much stuff as you can. Listen to alternative views if you want. Weigh them up. See what the truth is. Then you have to experiment for this yourself and put yourself as your own case study and monitor. So I come when I went on it in my journal, I put the experiment, and I would monitor everything that I felt, everything that I had a challenge with, and I monitored everything. And so from that, you are giving yourself the evidence that you need in order to sustain and keep going forwards. Because other people's testimonies are great, other people's experiences are great, but you're living in your body. So you go out there and you get the knowledge, get listening to Sean Baker. And man, he lives it. So the guy who told me I was overweight and that was what was causing my blood pressure and I needed to be on these tablets, he sat there with his belly tipping over the edge of his trousers. And I'm thinking, well, not sure. My friend once went for appetite suppressants to this private clinic. We just wanted it, and they were giving us dietary advice, and they were sat there. They were the size of a house. Do you know what I mean? Sat there in the chair, and I'm thinking, well, not sure these suppressants are working for you, are they? um, so
Yeah,
listen to
it's kind of you don't take financial advice from like someone who's living on the streets, you know.
absolutely, absolutely. You go to somebody who looks like they're living it, and these guys are living it. So you're living it. You're sat there looking healthy. You've got Sean Beatty. You've got Anthony Chafee, who look the part. They look like they know what they're talking about, as well as having the head knowledge and the science backing up. I listened to Zoe. Oh, anybody who wants to
Harkham.
yeah, Zoe Harkle. She's amazing at the way of just like breaking it all down. And if you want science, if you want reasons, go and listen to her. Listen to her. And she's also living it. So she doesn't do carnivore. So if you're more that way, but she certainly gives you the information on why processed food, why sugars and carbs, mixing them like we do is just bad for us. She's amazing. So all these people, Dr. Ken Berry's funny. He's great to listen to. It's just straight down the line. Um, like I say, Dr. David Unwin, find him. He's he's here in England, and I don't know. It's not just an American fad kind of thing that people tend to think. They do think that way? Oh, it's an American thing. Um, no, and he's proven it. He's written papers on it that have been peer reviewed, and I think like, oh, I feel safe on this because there's so much going into it, and it makes sense to everything I felt that we're being hoodwinked by media and all that, and your what you say, and about when you the other day you did about an article in one of the papers talking about how is it diabetes is caused by meat or something like that. That's just a nonsense, and I just think that's what you need to hear when you're on this. Listen, you're my tribe. Everybody on this is my little tribe. I found people who think like me, who are who are able to give me more information, more reasons for doing this. So yeah, I would say do that. Yeah,
Yeah. And the ultimate test, is once you start doing it, your body's not going to lie to you, right?
that's right. That's right.
Hmm. Yeah. So, do you have any way, Liz, of reaching out to you? Do you have any social media or anything like that?
Yeah, you can leave my email if anybody wants to get in touch with me by email. I'm happy to talk to anybody and share with them um, any tips or hints I've got. I mean, I've just got all my tips and I've just stolen all mine from everybody else. Yeah, yeah.
No worries. So I'll put your email in the show notes. Liz, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's been brilliant.